Marcus Williams had been looking forward to this day for months. At 19, he'd finally saved enough from his part-time job at the local grocery store to afford membership at Dragon's Den Martial Arts Academy, the most prestigious jiu-jitsu school in downtown Atlanta. The gleaming facility with its spotless mats and trophy-lined walls was a far cry from the cramped garage where he'd been teaching himself moves from YouTube videos for the past 3 years. His mother, Patricia, worked double shifts as a nurse to support them both after his father left when Marcus was 12. She'd worried about the monthly fee, but Marcus had insisted. "Mom, I need this. I've gotten as far as I can on my own." He'd shown her videos of his self-taught techniques, and even she could see the natural talent burning in her son. The academy's reputation was built around its head instructor, Trevor Blackwood, a third-degree black belt who'd trained champions and was known for his no-nonsense approach. Marcus had watched his YouTube channel religiously, admiring the technical precision and discipline Blackwood demanded from his students. Walking through the academy's glass doors that first evening, Marcus felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. His second-hand gi, purchased from a martial arts forum, was clean but showed its age. The other students wore crisp, expensive gear with embroidered academy logos. "You must be the new kid," said a voice behind him. Marcus turned to see Blackwood himself, a stocky man in his 40s with graying temples and cold blue eyes. "Marcus Williams, right? Your trial class starts in 10 minutes. "Yes, sir. Thank you for this opportunity," Marcus replied, extending his hand. Blackwood looked at the offered handshake, but didn't reciprocate. Instead, he glanced at Marcus's worn gi with obvious disdain. "We'll see if you're serious about this. Too many kids think they can walk in here and play fighter." The comment stung, but Marcus pushed it aside. Maybe Blackwood was just testing his resolve. He'd read about instructors who used intimidation to weed out uncommitted students. As Marcus changed in the locker room, he overheard 2 students talking. "Another charity case," one muttered. "Blackwood's been taking more of these lately, probably needs the money." The first red flag had been raised, but Marcus chose to ignore it. He was here to learn, not to make friends. The humiliation begins. The trial class started with basic warm-ups, where Marcus immediately stood out. His conditioning was exceptional. All those hours drilling in his garage had built incredible stamina and flexibility. While other students struggled through the exercises, Marcus moved with fluid precision. Well, Blackwood announced loudly, "Looks like our new student thinks he's already a fighter." The comment drew snickers from several students. Let's see how that confidence holds up against real training. Marcus felt his cheeks burn, but remained silent. He'd expected some hazing. Every martial arts movie had shown him that much. Blackwood paired Marcus with Jake Henderson, a blue belt who'd been training at the academy for 2 years. Jake was bigger, with obvious technical training, but Marcus could see openings in his stance that screamed amateur despite the colored belt. "Go easy on him, Jake," Blackwood said with mock concern. "We don't want to scare away the new blood on his first day." The sparring session began, and within 30 seconds, Marcus had swept Jake's legs and controlled the position. Jake struggled to escape, clearly surprised by Marcus's skill level. Marcus was careful not to hurt him, maintaining control without applying dangerous pressure. "Lucky shot," Blackwood interrupted, separating them. "Jake, you're being too nice. Show him what real jiu-jitsu looks like." The second round was different. Jake came in aggressively, trying to overpower Marcus with brute force rather than technique. Marcus defended easily, eventually securing a submission hold that would have ended the match in competition. Instead of acknowledging the clear victory, Blackwood stepped in again. "That's enough showboating. This isn't the street. We do things properly here." He turned to address the class. Everyone watched carefully. This is what happens when ego meets real training. Marcus released the hold, confused. He hadn't been showboating. He'd been demonstrating exactly the kind of technical skill Blackwood promoted in his videos. After class, as Marcus gathered his gear, he overheard Blackwood talking to Jake. "Don't let that embarrass you. Street fighters learn a few moves and think they're martial artists. He'll quit within a month once he realizes he needs to actually learn discipline." The words hit harder than any physical blow. Marcus had spent years disciplining himself, training alone when others his age were partying or playing video games. But he said nothing, swallowing his pride as he walked to his beat-up Honda Civic in the parking lot. Maybe next class would be different. The pattern emerges over the following weeks. A clear pattern emerged. No matter how well Marcus performed, Blackwood found ways to diminish his achievements. When Marcus demonstrated perfect technique, it was showing off. When he helped struggling white belts, he was acting like an instructor. When he asked questions about advanced techniques, he was getting ahead of himself. The other students began to follow Blackwood's lead. What had started as casual whispers became open mockery. "Street fighter thinks he knows better than sensei" became a common refrain. Marcus found himself increasingly isolated, eating lunch alone, when he stayed for the academy's open mat sessions. The breaking point came during a technique demonstration. Blackwood was showing a complex submission that Marcus recognized from his garage training. When Blackwood asked for volunteers to demonstrate, Marcus raised his hand. "I think I understand this one, sensei. My training partner and I worked on something similar." The room went silent. Blackwood's face hardened. "Your training partner? You mean that pillow you've been wrestling in your bedroom?" The class erupted in laughter. Marcus felt his face flush with embarrassment and anger, but he kept his composure. "No, sir, I meant the techniques I've been studying. I think I can demonstrate the counter." "What you can do," Blackwood interrupted, his voice rising, "is sit down and listen. I don't know what YouTube University taught you, but this is real martial arts. Until you learn respect and humility, you'll never advance beyond white belt in my academy." Marcus sat down, hands clenched in his lap. Around him, he could hear whispered comments. Typical attitude. Thinks he knows everything. Why doesn't he just leave? After class, Marcus approached a fellow student named David Chen, one of the few who hadn't joined in the mockery. David was a purple belt who'd been training for 4 years and had always been respectful to Marcus. "David, can I ask you something? Am I really being disrespectful? I'm just trying to learn." David glanced around nervously before responding in a low voice. "Marcus, you're not the problem. But Blackwood, he doesn't like it when students learn things outside his curriculum. He's always been controlling, but lately it's gotten worse." David paused. "Look, there are other academies in town. Maybe you should consider." "No," Marcus said firmly. "I paid for a full-year membership. I deserve to train here as much as anyone else." David nodded but looked worried. "Just be careful, man. Blackwood has ways of making life difficult for students he doesn't like." The setup Marcus's warning came to fruition 3 weeks later during the Academy's monthly belt promotion ceremony. Despite consistently outperforming students who'd been training for similar periods, Marcus wasn't even considered for his first stripe. Meanwhile, Jake Henderson, whom Marcus had easily defeated in their first sparring session, received his second blue belt stripe. After the ceremony, Marcus approached Blackwood privately. "Sensei, I was wondering about my progression. I've been training consistently for 2 months now, and I feel like I'm ready for evaluation." Blackwood's expression was ice cold. "Evaluation? You think showing up and going through the motions equals progression?" He leaned back in his chair, studying Marcus like a specimen. "Real martial arts isn't just about physical technique, Williams. It's about character, respect, and understanding your place." "I understand that, sir. I've been respectful to everyone here. Have you?" Blackwood's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Because from where I sit, you've been questioning my teaching methods, undermining my authority, and disrupting my classes with your street fighting mentality." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "Sir, I've never questioned your authority. I just asked questions about techniques." Questioning is exactly what you've been doing. Blackwood stood up, using his height advantage to intimidate. Let me make something clear, Williams. This academy has standards. We don't just hand out belts to anyone who thinks they deserve them. Until you learn humility and respect, you'll remain exactly where you are. Marcus left that conversation shaken but determined. That night he called his mother and explained the situation. "Baby," Patricia said over the phone, "maybe that man is right. Maybe you need to be more patient." "Mom, it's not about patience. He's singling me out because—" Marcus paused, not wanting to say what they both suspected. "Because of what, Marcus?" "Because I don't fit his image of what a martial artist should look like. Because I learned on my own instead of paying thousands for private lessons. Because I'm not grateful enough for the privilege of being here." The silence on the other end told him his mother understood. Finally, she spoke. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to prove that talent doesn't come from a pedigree. I'm going to earn my place here, whether he likes it or not." But Marcus had no idea how personal Blackwood was about to make their conflict. The investigation the next week brought a devastating revelation. Marcus arrived at the academy to find Blackwood waiting for him in the lobby, arms crossed and wearing a grim expression. "Williams, we need to talk. There's been a complaint filed against you." Marcus's blood ran cold. "A complaint? About what?" "Aggressive behavior toward other students. Specifically, Jake Henderson reported that you've been using excessive force during sparring and making threats outside of class." The accusation was so absurd that Marcus almost laughed. "That's completely false. I've never threatened anyone, and I'm always careful during sparring. Jake says otherwise. He's got witnesses too." Blackwood pulled out a folder. 3 students have signed statements saying you've been creating a hostile environment." Marcus recognized the names on the statements. All students who regularly socialized with Blackwood outside of class. "This is ridiculous. Anyone can see I'm not aggressive. Check your security cameras if you want proof." "Unfortunately, our cameras have been malfunctioning lately," Blackwood said with a slight smile. "But based on these reports, I'm suspending you from all classes pending a full investigation." Marcus felt the walls closing in. How long will this investigation take? As long as necessary. Maybe this will give you time to reflect on your attitude problem. Walking to his car in stunned silence, Marcus realized he'd been outmaneuvered. Blackwood had used the academy's internal politics to create an untouchable position. Who would believe a 19-year-old kid over an established instructor with years of reputation? That night, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. Instead of wallowing in self-pity, he began researching. If Blackwood wanted to play games with rules and procedures, Marcus would learn to play them better. He started with the academy's website, social media presence, and online reviews. What he found was illuminating. Hidden among the glowing testimonials were scattered complaints about favoritism, inappropriate behavior, and students leaving under mysterious circumstances. One review particularly caught his attention, posted by someone named Former Student 2019. Blackwood creates a toxic environment for students who don't fit his preferred demographic. Be prepared for politics over progression. Marcus reached out to the reviewer through the platform's messaging system. Within hours, he received a response from Alex Rodriguez, a former brown belt who'd left the academy abruptly 2 years earlier. "Marcus," Alex wrote, "I'm not surprised to hear your story. Blackwood drove out 3 talented students during my time there, all for similar reasons. The problem is he's careful about legal liability. Everything he does is technically within the academy's policies." They arranged to meet at a coffee shop near Marcus's work. Alex turned out to be a soft-spoken accountant in his 30s who'd trained martial arts for over a decade. "The truth is," Alex explained, "Blackwood has investors who expect certain membership numbers. He can't afford to lose too many paying customers. But he also can't stand students who challenge his authority or make him look bad." "So what happened to you?" Alex's expression darkened. I made the mistake of correcting his technique during a seminar. He was teaching a submission wrong, dangerously wrong. When I spoke up, he humiliated me in front of 50 people, then created a harassment campaign that made training impossible. Marcus leaned forward. Did you fight back? I tried. But Blackwood has connections throughout the local martial arts community. He spreads rumors, blocks students from competing in tournaments, even prevents them from joining other academies. The scope of Blackwood's influence was more extensive than Marcus had realized. But Alex wasn't finished. However, Alex continued with a slight smile. I did discover something interesting during my research. Something that might level the playing field. Alex's discovery was a game changer. Blackwood's academy receives state funding through a youth outreach program, he explained, sliding a printed document across the coffee table. They get grants for providing martial arts training to underprivileged kids. The problem is, he's been pocketing that money while systematically excluding the exact students the program is meant to help. Marcus studied the document. An official state grant application where Dragon's Den Martial Arts Academy had received $15,000 annually for 3 years to provide free training to low-income youth. The application specifically mentioned recruiting students from urban communities and providing equipment assistance. I was never told about any free programs, Marcus said. And I definitely qualified financially. Exactly. Neither were any of the other students he pushed out. I suspect he uses the program to boost his funding while maintaining his exclusive atmosphere. Marcus felt a spark of hope for the first time in weeks. What can we do with this information? Alex smiled. We can file a complaint with the state education department. But we'll need evidence of the discriminatory practices, not just the missing programs. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus and Alex worked methodically. Alex reached out to other former students, while Marcus began documenting every interaction at the academy. He invested in a small recording device and started keeping detailed notes of conversations and incidents. The breakthrough came when Marcus discovered the academy's student handbook contained explicit anti-discrimination policies that Blackwood had clearly violated. More importantly, the handbook outlined a formal grievance process that required the academy to investigate complaints within 30 days. Marcus filed a formal grievance with the academy's parent company, documenting the false harassment allegations, discriminatory treatment, and denial of equal training opportunities. He requested a hearing with the regional manager and demanded access to the security footage Blackwood claimed was malfunctioning. 3 days later, Marcus received a call from Rebecca Martinez, the regional operations manager. Mr. Williams, I've reviewed your complaint. I'd like to schedule a meeting with you, Instructor Blackwood, and myself to discuss these allegations. Will this be a fair hearing? Marcus asked. Absolutely. I take these matters very seriously. Can you be at the academy this Friday at 6 p.m.? Marcus agreed, then immediately called Alex. It's happening. The hearing is set for Friday. Are you ready for this? Alex asked. Blackwood won't go down without a fight. Marcus thought about all the humiliation, the wasted training time, the talent being suppressed because of one man's ego. I've been ready since the day I walked into that place. Friday evening arrived with unseasonable tension in the air. Marcus arrived at the academy 30 minutes early, wearing his best button-down shirt and carrying a folder containing 2 months of documented evidence. He'd barely slept the night before, running through possible scenarios and preparing for Blackwood's counterattacks. Rebecca Martinez turned out to be a no-nonsense woman in her 50s with silver hair and sharp eyes. She'd driven down from the corporate headquarters in Birmingham and clearly meant business. Mr. Williams, thank you for coming. Let's get started. The meeting took place in the academy's office, with Blackwood sitting across from Marcus at a small conference table. Rebecca sat at the head, reviewing both parties' submitted materials. Trevor, she began, I've read Mr. Williams' complaint in detail. These are serious allegations of discriminatory treatment and violation of our corporate policies. What's your response? Blackwood's confident demeanor had cracked slightly. Rebecca, this student has been disruptive from day one. Everything I did was to maintain discipline and academy standards. The harassment complaint from other students is legitimate. About that, Rebecca interrupted, consulting her notes. I spoke with Jake Henderson yesterday. He admitted that you encouraged him to file the complaint and helped him write the statement. He also said the alleged incidents never actually occurred. Marcus watched Blackwood's face pale. Jake had cracked under questioning from a corporate investigator, something Blackwood hadn't anticipated. Rebecca continued, I also had our tech team examine the security system. The cameras were never malfunctioning. In fact, they clearly show Mr. Williams behaving appropriately during all recorded interactions. They also show you making several unprofessional comments about his background and training. Now, wait just a minute, Blackwood started. I'm not finished. Rebecca's voice carried steel. I also discovered that this academy has received state funding for youth outreach programs that you've never implemented. Mr. Williams qualified for free training under that program, but was never informed of its existence. The room fell silent. Marcus could hear his own heartbeat as Rebecca delivered the final blow. Effective immediately, you're suspended pending a full corporate investigation. Mr. Williams, your membership fees will be refunded in full, and you're welcome to continue training under interim instruction. Blackwood shot to his feet. You can't do this. I've built this academy from nothing. One troublemaker's complaints shouldn't. Trevor, sit down. Rebecca's command carried the weight of absolute authority. This isn't about one complaint. We've received 3 additional complaints since Monday from former students who heard about Mr. Williams' case. Your pattern of behavior is well documented. Marcus watched his tormentor crumble as the reality sank in. The man who'd wielded absolute power over the academy now sat powerless as his empire collapsed around him. There's one more thing, Rebecca said, turning to Marcus. Corporate would like to offer you a position as an assistant instructor while you continue your training. Your technical skills are impressive, and your character during this ordeal has been exemplary. Marcus felt vindicated but not vindictive. I just want to train and help others do the same. That's exactly why you're the right person for this opportunity. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the same academy where he'd once been humiliated, but everything had changed. The walls still displayed the same trophies, but the atmosphere was entirely different. Under new management, Dragon's Den had become exactly what it claimed to be. A place where dedication and skill were rewarded regardless of background. Marcus had earned his blue belt through a fair and transparent testing process. More importantly, he had become the Academy's youth outreach coordinator, finally implementing the programs that state funding was meant to support. Every week, a dozen kids from his old neighborhood came in for free training, using equipment purchased with the recovered grant money. Blackwood's fate had been both swift and thorough. The corporate investigation revealed years of financial irregularities, discriminatory practices, and ethical violations. He'd been terminated from the academy chain and faced potential criminal charges for grant fraud. Word spread quickly through the martial arts community, effectively ending his career in the industry. The irony, Alex told Marcus over coffee one afternoon, is that Blackwood created exactly the situation he was trying to prevent. By trying to maintain his exclusive little kingdom, he ended up losing everything. Marcus nodded, but his focus had shifted beyond revenge. You know what the best part is? Those kids from my neighborhood. They're incredible. 2 of them are already ready for their first stripe promotion. The real victory wasn't Blackwood's downfall, but the opportunity to prove his original point. Talent doesn't wait for permission, and excellence isn't limited by zip code or family income. One evening, as Marcus was locking up the academy after a youth class, he noticed a familiar car in the parking lot. Through the windshield, he could see Blackwood watching the building with hollow eyes. Their gazes met for a moment across the distance. Marcus felt no anger, no satisfaction at his former instructor's fall. Instead, he felt something he hadn't expected: pity. Blackwood had possessed real knowledge and skill, but had poisoned it with prejudice and ego. He'd chosen to tear others down instead of building them up, and ultimately destroyed himself in the process. Marcus turned away from the window and walked to his car. Tomorrow brought new students, new challenges, and new opportunities to prove that respect is earned through character, not demanded through authority. The 19-year-old who'd once trained alone in a garage now held keys to one of the city's premier martial arts academies. But more importantly, he held the power to ensure that no other talented kid would be turned away because they didn't fit someone else's narrow vision of what a martial artist should look like. As he drove home through the streets where he'd grown up, Marcus smiled. Sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming everything your oppressor said you could never be, and then opening the door for others to do the same. The cycle had been broken, and a new legacy had begun. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and become a part of our Everyday Life Stories community. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from our amazing viewers around the world.